My name is Luis Vasquez. I'm with UCI Beal Applied Innovation. And today I was going to talk to you about the Orange County innovation ecosystem and what UC Irvine has in place for the community to help develop the ecosystem here. So as I mentioned, we want to talk about the overview, and then I'm also going to spend a little bit of time talking about resources that are available to the entire innovation community here in Orange County and Southern California. But I wanted to emphasize that what I'm going to present today is in addition to the other resources that are being described on these other webinars. So I really didn't want to be repetitious of the other opportunities and resources that are available. So I'm really just going to focus on these resources that are really around the high tech, high growth, mostly sort of high impact companies that we have here in the area. So as far as the Orange County ecosystem, there really is a pretty well developed set of organizations and groups and resources that can help entrepreneurs and startups move through this center. So we've created a slide that shows what we call the entrepreneurial journey through this process. So it really begins on the left for companies that are very early stage and that simply have ideas or want to start things off. So in as much as the research institutions and the universities impact quite a bit of this, that's why we've listed UCI, which I'm going to speak about in more detail since that's who I'm with. But also wanted to mention that Chapman University has 73,000 students. 61% of those students are female students, so it's a diverse population. And they really have some specialties in business, film, communication, etc. Cal State University Fullerton, much larger, has 40,000 students, and they specialize or they have a focus on business, accounting, marketing, communication, psychology, and health-related positions. So a lot of the students that are interested in entrepreneurial activities obviously come out of these universities, and UCI is the main research institution here in the county. But there are a number of organizations for entrepreneurs and young people that are interested in starting companies, as we say, just curious. Those might be the Tech Coast Venture Network, which is listed here as TCVN, or 1 Million Cups, which help entrepreneurs and founders that just want to be around like-minded individuals and want to practice their idea around other types of folks and get some types of feedback around that. Then once companies are actually started, there are a number of different organizations that can help the founders that have created their companies. So that includes the SBDC, Octane, the Startup Council, and some other networking groups that you see there, OC Tech and Startup Grind, which are for entrepreneurs that have gotten companies going. Then once they're committed to that and they actually need to find some very early stage funding, I've listed on here a lot of the venture studios and the seed stage entrepreneurs that are actually located here in Orange County. So it ranges from Tech Coast Angels, which is the largest angel investment group in the country. It's one of the original ones and it's one of the largest. And they do literally hundreds of deals a year of seed investment and very early stage investment. OC Angel Investors is a group of women angel investors that focus on women founders and women startup companies. Six Dragonflies, Titan Angels are another group, another couple of groups that do very early stage investing. And then I've also listed some accelerators that we have and some venture studios: Evo Nexus, Koa XL, OC Venture Studio, C Digital Labs, and Pismo Ventures. And what those groups do is they bring the companies in-house. So they will actually provide networking space, co-working space. In some cases, they provide investment as well. And they either actively take on a lot of the roles that the founders would do and help the founder focus on their core discipline while taking care of the other aspects that can help the company grow. or they provide mentorship, capital, connections, such as this is really where EvoNexus is, that can help the companies identify their target customers, identify their minimum viable product, and get those companies really going from conception to first product, or to at least minimum viable product, and start to get some of that market traction. Then when the companies actually are formed and going, that's where the venture capital community kicks in. And I've listed there 15 different VCs that are not only active in Orange County, but reside in Orange County. So this is an interesting play. I think many people believe that you have to have investors that are part of the community and that live in the community and can really understand what's going on here. Others believe that as long as you attract capital, then you can attract capital from other areas. And I happen to reside in that camp. So I believe that having local investors is very important, and we've got 15 of them there, that from seed stage investors like Okapi and CoFund, to Series A investors such as Miramar Digital Ventures, Mark IV, Calibrate, and some firms that do Series B investments and later, such as Ancona, Pelion, Flying L Ventures, etc. So we do have a pretty active community of venture capitalists that do participate and are here in this area. So as the startups get going here, you can see that there's an entire path of resources all along the way that can support the companies to get going. And then I have to have my caveat that I started with. In addition to everything else that the Greater Irvine Chamber is describing for the groups here on these phone calls. So once the companies do get going here, particularly the high tech, high growth companies, what does that activity look like? And so what I've done here is I have a kind of a snapshot of what's going on just this year. So as you can see here in Orange County, there have been, so far this year, there have been 60 companies that have raised $384 million in venture capital funding. And the breakdown is actually here, down here at the bottom. So this is the breakdown of the number of deals and the amount of money that's gone into each one of those stages. So as you can see, the deal flow, there's quite a few angel investment deals here, and seed and Series A. So you can see easily half of those deals are the very early stage deals. Now, to be clear, these are Orange County companies that have received venture capital investment. So it may have been venture capital investment from anywhere in the world, frankly, but the companies happen to be located here. As I mentioned earlier, there are 15 VCs that have offices here in Orange County, and you can see some of the more active ones that are here or that invest in Orange County are CoFund, Flying L Partners, Mark IV, and then a few others that have invested in a couple of companies here over the last couple of years. But these are the most active firms that invest in Orange County companies. But we really are kind of part of a larger ecosystem. So that's why I included Los Angeles here as well. That in terms of LA deals, so companies that reside in LA County, which is directly to our north, they've received 174 companies there have received $544 million. So you can see it's about 50% larger than it is here in Orange County. So it's a pretty vibrant ecosystem. So while the Greater Irvine Chamber certainly is very much focused on attracting companies to Irvine, into the Greater Irvine area, the ecosystem really does extend beyond that. A lot of these companies, from literally from where UC Irvine sits, they may be just 35 or 40 minutes away, or as far as maybe 45 or an hour away, to kind of encompass that larger ring of innovation activity. So now I want to swing over to UCI and describe how UCI is supporting the innovation ecosystem. And we do that through UCI Beal Applied Innovation. So the vision of UCI Beal Applied Innovation is to help transform Orange County into a globally recognized startup ecosystem. And what's important about that is that we built UCI Beal Applied Innovation to really be a resource for the community. So very much outward facing. A lot of research institutions focus very much internally, where they focus on the intellectual property that is being developed within their university and try to commercialize that. We certainly do all of that. So don't get the impression that we're not interested in those things. But we really built this as a platform so that we can engage the broader community and help the innovation and the startups, high tech, high growth companies that are located in and around Orange County. So let me talk a little bit about UCI though. So we currently have $441 million in research grants and contracts annually. So it's a pretty large research budget. So that research mostly comes from the federal government through the National Institute of Health or National Science Foundation, but many other resources of funding come in to contribute to that. And there are about 60,000, as our chancellor says, 60,000 disruptors. So that's broken down to about 34,000 students and about 26,000 staff and researchers. We've named the best college in the United States by Money Magazine. And one thing that we're very proud of at UC Irvine is that for the second year in a row, the New York Times designated UC Irvine as the #1 college that's doing the most for the American dream. So that they take metrics into account such as the number of first generation students, the first ones in their family to go to university, and the standard of living improvement that they're able to make while they're at the university. So we're very pleased that UCI has been named the #1 college in that respect for 2 years. And this research does have quite an economic impact. So what we've tracked at UCI Beal Applied Innovation is that from companies that were created by UCI founders, so an alumni of UCI that went on to create a company, or companies created on UCI intellectual property, there's actually been $11 billion that has been invested into those startups. And coincidentally, there's also been $11 billion in terms of liquidity exits. So the first number is the amount of money that went into these companies as venture capital investment or seed investment, et cetera. And the other one is the money that came out during mergers and acquisitions or initial public offerings. So we're very pleased that we've had that kind of $22 billion economic impact. And as you can see, most of it does stay in the area. So 80% of those deals were in California companies. So UCI alumni that went throughout California, but 56% of those dollars were in Southern California, and then 14% of them actually here in Orange County. So the money does stay there, and we're on quite an upward trajectory because of that $22.6 billion, 64% of it has happened in the last 5 years. So that number is growing and growing very quickly. So what UCI has done is we focus on these 4 key areas: intellectual property, industry engagement, entrepreneurship on campus, and then, as I mentioned before, the Orange County startup ecosystem. And we've created groups that can address each of those areas. So I'm going to quickly go through each one of these, spending a little bit more time on the ecosystem part, as that's most important. So as most research institutions we're very actively supporting the intellectual property that's created with that $441 million that I described earlier. So we support the UCI faculty on that. We help them to get the intellectual property actually filed, and we get those patents granted, and then we help market those technologies out to either startup companies or larger institutions. Then we also work very actively with industry. So UCI Beal Applied Innovation specifically solves for the problem that a lot of large companies have when they're trying to engage research institutions. They may have a great relationship, say, with the the School of Engineering, but then they decide they'd like to talk to someone in the Department of Chemistry, or perhaps they'd like to talk to someone at the School of Medicine or the School of Law. That leap is very difficult for a lot of startup companies or a lot of large companies. So what we've done is we provide that concierge level support to help companies engage the different resources and the different faculty members and the different research labs around those different areas that they might be able to work. And we even go beyond that, where we will help dig in and help these companies simply when they have a problem, and we'll pull together the resources from the university to try to collaboratively solve that problem, or to create new businesses and to help these existing companies with innovation and new business idea creation. Then we also focus on UCI entrepreneurship. So all of the students, staff, faculty member, and alumni and UCI intellectual property that has been licensed, and help those companies get started and get those companies well-founded, and then ultimately also funded through that. So as far as the ecosystem goes, we've created a 100,000 square foot facility. It's 3 floors with event space. You can see some photos here. You can see another photo in the background here that I'm using for my background of the types of space that we have available, and really built as a platform for the community. So companies, startup companies, investors can use this space to come together and to work on innovative projects. We currently have 4 different groups that do their investment screenings at the Cove, at our facility. Some of those venture capitalists and angel groups that I mentioned earlier. We have 8 VCs that have offices in our building so that they can be around entrepreneurs and they can take advantage of all of these resources. We've got venture capital firms that use our building or use our event space for their limited partner meetings. So when they bring in their own investors, they're able to promote what they're doing and meet with their limited partners. And then about what I do in particular. So what I do in my role is venture capital collaboration. From an outbound side, or from an outside perspective, I provide resources to the investors. So if there's an investor, whether they're in Orange County or outside of Orange County, I provide that concierge level support to help them engage the university, engage the faculty members that they want, connect with other resources in and around the Orange County ecosystem. So I want to make their job easier to make investments in the Orange County area. And then on an outbound basis, what I do is I provide introductions for entrepreneurs, mostly those in Orange County. So if you're an Orange County firm and you're trying to raise money, then what I do is I leverage my network that I have of over 155 different venture capitalists, and I make those connections and I make those introductions between the CEO and the investor. To be very clear, there's 2 things that are interesting about this. One, and to be very clear, is this is a free service. So this is, I'm a university employee. There is no fee for this. There's no equity. We don't take stock. We don't take warrants. We don't take a success fee. There's nothing like that. So this is a community service provided by the university, because we believe that more companies that get funded here in Orange County, that will be the rising tide that will lift all the boats here in the Orange County ecosystem. Plus, some indirect benefits will flow back to the university. Graduating students may get jobs. Alumni may think about starting companies. Faculty members may think about translational research. The growing companies may take advantage of some of the resources that the university provides, which I'm going to speak to in a few minutes. So we believe that those benefits will come back. So that's why I produce that. The second point, and it's good to emphasize this, is this service is available to any company in Orange County. So so most research institutions, the other people that might have a job similar to mine at other universities, really simply focus on what's coming out of their research institution. What are the startup companies that are being created there? But I can help companies regardless of their UCI connection. So if they have no UCI connection whatsoever, I can still assist them with those capital connections and those introductions. And I believe I've done a fairly good job. As I mentioned, I have 155 different angel groups, or excuse me, venture capitalists and investors that I have. And then these are just kind of a few, well, many logos, frankly, of the investors that I have that are either in this slide for angel investors or seed round VCs. So when I get a deal or a company and I vet it and I believe that it is venture capital ready, then what I do is I go out to my network and I identify those investors that invest in that particular technology at that stage of development and invest in county. Then when I find those from this group, then I list entrepreneur to the founders. They go through it and they eliminate any of the ones perhaps they're new or that they've already approached. And then I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable. I'm gonna wait a second here to let it go again. So then what I do is then when the entrepreneur has vetted that list, then I reach out to the investors individually and I check with them to see if they're interested. And then when they are, so essentially it's a double opt-in approach. When they are, that's when I make those introductions. So on this slide, you're seeing the Series A investors that I have relationships with. Some of the seed investors also do Series A, but so you can take some of the folks from the last slide and kind of move them onto this one as well. And then Series B and C, well, there are fewer of those. Most of the companies I work with are seed and Series A, so there aren't that many investors that I have, but still total of about 155. Also work with quite a few corporate VCs. So these are companies that have corporate VC arms, and so I have relationships with all of the venture capital arms of corporate VCs that are listed here. And those are very useful because what corporate VCs can provide is, in addition to capital, they can provide pilot projects, they can provide connections in industry experts, domain experts in these particular areas, and can really help these companies grow. Some of these VCs only make strategic investments, so they only invest in companies that are strategic to what they're doing. Others are financial VCs that will make investments in areas simply looking for a return. But the fact of the matter is, I have quite a few resources along those lines. So let's talk about a few other resources that are available here. So first of all, I'm going to talk about resources at UCI that are available to all companies, regardless of where they were. These are just resources that are available for the community in general, and then university lab partners. So at first with UCI. So UCI has at least these three centers. I picked the three most prominent ones. The UCI Center for Clinical Research is where UCI and how UCI does its clinical trials. So certainly in this day and age, it's become a lot more front of mind for most people. UCI was one of the clinical trial sites for remdesivir. They're currently working on a number of different diagnostic clinical trials for COVID-19. But essentially, this the Center for Clinical Research essentially functions as a CRO, as a contract research organization. They will help design clinical trials. They help with the enrollment, and essentially can do almost everything for the startup company, the life science startup company that needs to conduct a clinical trial. UCI can provide all of those services. Or if the company is experienced in clinical trials and it's managing their own, then UCI can actually enroll the patients and conduct that clinical trial or be a clinical trial site. The UCI Institute for Design and Manufacturing Innovation is not only kind of a cutting edge think tank for manufacturing technologies, but actually has a lot of this very expensive, very specialized equipment that the community can lease out and use on a time basis or a time and materials basis. So it provides a resource for companies that may not want to or may not need to make that capital investment to to purchase this large specialized equipment, when they can come in and they can use the equipment in this innovation center. And not only do they have a centralized place where they have a lot of this equipment, but they have access to specialized equipment that has been purchased by the university that may be residing in the different research labs around campus. So, but they're the ones that are able to process it, quite frankly, from a need perspective. Someone doesn't come in and have to say, I have this particular, or do you have this particular machine that will do this? They can come in with a problem and say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And IDMI can help them identify how they can actually solve that problem with equipment available at UCI. And then the UC Irvine Materials Research Institute. So that's a preeminent research organization that helps on the characterization of inorganic and biologic materials. So when a company is interested in producing a product or doing some type of research with novel materials, or the materials that exist may not be useful for them, that's where the IMRI can be useful. So hopefully, if that's of use to you, then you can check those websites and those email addresses down at the bottom of that, or you can reach out to me and I can provide any of that. I also wanted to tell you about University Lab Partners. So for life science companies, University Lab Partners is a not-for-profit wet lab space that is actually located in our building, but it's a separate organization. It's a separate nonprofit located in our building. And what they provide is flexible lab and office space. So life science companies, whether they're biotech, drug development, diagnostic or medical device, they can lease these wet lab spaces on a per bench per month basis. So with very short terms and very affordable. I see your question here, Dennis. So let me finish this part, and I'll jump back over to it. So University Lab Partners provides that type of ability. So that's very important, because wet labs are very expensive, and rather than having to spend $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to lease and outfit a lab, life science companies could come in and only rent a bench as little as $2,000 a month and begin to conduct all of their work there, and then also take advantage of over $1.5 million of equipment that University Lab Partners has, and also through University Lab Partners access UCI's technical resources and their experts and residents. So that's actually all I have. Here's some information for University Lab Partners. If you're interested, same thing, you can contact me. And that's where I was going to end it. So why don't I talk to your question, which is, what is the level of VC angel activity at the moment from seed to Series A? So why don't I go back to that slide, because I can show you what we have going on in Orange County right now. So as you can see here on this slide, so in terms of all venture capital activity in LA and Orange County, you can see there's approaching $1 billion so far. So 544 in LA and 384 million in Orange County. And then I do break down the Orange County detail down at the bottom right. So you can see that by and large, it's a fairly robust ecosystem. So in the United States, Silicon Valley still, even though they're facing a lot of headwinds right now, still is by far the largest VC ecosystem. So billions of dollars, where we're approaching 1 billion. They're probably in the billions of dollars range. And then from that, the next one is generally the New York City ecosystem is kind of the second largest, and then the Boston area and Southern California generally kind of duke it out for three or four on that general list. So there's quite a bit that happens there. So as far as COVID-19 goes, absolutely, there was, particularly in the first several weeks and the first month, where the pandemic really started to affect economic activity, there was a definite pause. For about 2 weeks, it seemed that most of the VCs were doing triage on their own portfolio and essentially going back to their existing companies and trying to understand what those companies were going to need. But it has since picked up again. Certainly, there in May there was more venture investment than there was in April, so it's ticking back up. Most of the VCs that paused are now starting to make investments again. And in general, I think the way I what I'm hearing, and if I could make a general statement, is most VCs have probably taken a look at their current fund and reduced the number of companies in that fund probably by about 10 to 20%. So if there were, if a smaller fund was going to make 10 different company investments out of its fund, they might now be thinking about only doing 8. And then taking that capital that would have gone to this new company and reallocating that capital or holding that capital in reserve for follow-on funding for their existing portfolio. So the number of venture investments is going to go down, no doubt about it. 2019 will probably be a high point. 2020 will not match it by any stretch, but venture activity is definitely still continuing. Valuations are absolutely down. It's an economic fact that as public market indices go down, particularly here in the United States, the NASDAQ, as the NASDAQ index tends to go down, valuations for private companies and for venture-backed companies also go down. So a company that might have been trying to raise money in January at a $5 million pre-money valuation or a $10 million pre-money valuation is now finding that their valuations might be 3.5 million or 7 million. So yeah, from a founder perspective, the valuations are lower than they were before. But in some ways, you might also say that they're also a little bit more rational than they were, because there might have been a little bit too much exuberance on some of those valuations in the past anyway. So I would say number of investments probably down about 20%, and moving forward will probably be that way. And then valuations the same, probably down between 20 and 30% on the deals that are getting done right now. So here's my information, Dennis. You can reach out to me if you like. And I'm available for you. You can reach out to the Greater Irvine Chamber as well with any questions. Thank you so much.